Hey guys, what's up? This is part 2 of the breeding ethics video before we get into any of the genetics and actual breeding and stuff like that. Um, you probably saw the first half hour, kind of rambled on a little bit, talked about the history and knowing the genetics behind all of your animals, stuff like that. What I'm going to talk about in the second part here is a little bit more of the next step of everything, knowing your genetics and the proper time to breed your animals, stuff like that. And then I'll talk a little bit about naming of different morphs and all that fun stuff. Um, First, we'll talk about naming, which this can be definitely a controversial topic. It's one of those things that, I mean, it's a little bit part of selling, a little bit part ego, a little bit part of a lot of different things. The selling part of it, it's definitely a marketing thing. That's why people create new names for different stuff. Not to mention, like, that they want their the how do I even say it? They want to be known for creating a name or creating it's kind of like a branding type thing. So there's a lot of different reasonings for naming different things, but the main ones are definitely to it's definitely marketing is the biggest thing, because a lot of names, they might not even have anything to do with the actual genetic, but it's kind of a marketing ploy, if you will, to help sell their animals. So that definitely comes with, like, the tangerine lines. There's probably 8, 10 different tangerine lines, if you will. They're all basically genetically the same. It's just breeders putting their names on certain their line, if you will. There's definitely a lot of controversy on how long do you have to be breeding these animals to have a line of your own, and there's no right answer to that, because I mean, you could be breeding a line and it looks totally different right away. There's certain lines that they take forever to look any different. I think that different genetic lines shouldn't really be named anything differently genetic until they are visually something different, that you can pick out that animal and be like, oh, well, that's definitely this. It's one of those things that, I mean, to actually give it a name, it's a little rough. I mean, I would like to think that my G project looks a little bit different than most things, just with the extreme carroting on the tail and stuff like that. But it's also why I named it a project and not like a line, if you will, because it's ongoing still. It's never going to be complete. My G project is just that. It's just a project. Sometimes I'll look for different things that pop out of that line that cause me to try to focus more on different aspects of it. I mean, the big thing that I'm working on with it is, like, the carroting on the tail, and a little bit of the patterning type stuff, but some of them still hatch out patternless stripe, which the patternless stripe ones still look cool, but it's all in that project. And that's another reason why I call it a project and not a line, is because a lot of the babies that hatch out of it, they could look totally different depending on what female I use, and stuff like that. The males that I use are pretty much, I only use a couple males for that project, so the males are usually all the same, the females are a little bit different, but I'm trying to create other things from it right now as well, like eclipses, which is the eye pigmentation, and trying to make it more colorful, more carroting on the tail. Because if you breed eclipses or radars or raptors or typhoons, any of that stuff, you'll find that once the eye pigmentation comes out, usually the color is a lot more faded than an animal from the same line that doesn't have the eye pigmentation. So it's actually a little bit harder to make eclipses with really, really good color. It's almost something that needs to be like line bred into it. So that's one of the things that I will be working on with my G project, is to kind of line breed some of the color into an eclipse animal with more carrot tail, stuff like that. But back to like the naming of different lines and stuff like that. I don't really think that it's like, I don't find it that big of a deal. Some people, you know, they'll say that it's a big deal. I mean, because there's people out there that they'll, you know, cross two animals together and then all of a sudden they have their own line. And I mean, it's a marketing thing. And that's the way you got to look at it. Pretty much anything that is like a tangerine that has their own line, it's just pure marketing. I mean, it's that simple. You'll notice that like there's a line that I work on of tangerines. It's I call it the atomic line. It's just to sell animals. I mean, I know the genetics behind it. It's definitely got Albie line in it. It's got Masterpiece Gecko line in it, which Masterpiece actually came from Gourmet Rodent originally, but then he line bred it. So I mean, it's you can kind of go back and trace where stuff came from. It has a little bit of the A&M line in it, which the A&M line came from Albie stuff crossed to another like lesser known breeder stuff and some of the Tug stuff. So it's basically every single tangerine line out there, it's going to have all this stuff mixed into it. I don't care what people say, because tangerine's just not some random mutation that just pops out and, you know, somebody can say that, oh, this is a brand new line of tangerine. It's not. It's just a marketing thing for different people to say that they have different, you know, different lines of it. But at the end of the day, it's still, if you did genetic testing on it, a lot of them are related. Probably 99% related. Might have a little bit of outcrossing here and there, but some of the lines, like, they're just, that's it, they're just lines. Some of them do look very different than other lines. The electric line definitely looks different, in my opinion. It does have some different patterning to it. It's not just solid orange. It has more of a patterning to it, which I think makes it a little bit more unique. The Albie line, like, that's Albie's line. Like, he's been working on it forever. I think more people should, whenever they have their own line of tangerines, give him more respect and say that that's what's in it. People that give this excuse of we don't want to say what's in our tangerine line because we don't want to give away our secrets. Fuck that. Sorry, I just flipped everybody off. That's a cop out. Like, if you can't tell me what's in the animal, then like you shouldn't be breeding, in my opinion, because it may be a secret or whatever, but I mean, if you can't tell what is exactly in the animal, then like it's kind of stupid. I mean, in my opinion anyway, just because if I produce something, like, I'll tell you what's in it. Like, I might not like post it right then what it's in it, but if you ask me, I would tell you what's in it and what causes it to look like that. There are certain traits in animals that cause animals to look a certain way, especially like even subspecies stuff that's crossed into certain stuff, like the Afghanicus, for instance. It's more of a bolder, darker patterned look. Whenever I go through the breeding videos, I'll show you what I mean by that. It'll cause more lavendery colors in sometimes. The Fasciolatus also causes more lavender colors in it. It's stuff that buyers should know. It's not something that, oh, it's my secret ingredients that I'm not going to tell you what's in this so that you can make it the other way. That's kind of a cop out. It really is. you should always say what's in your animals, even if it is using other people's animals. Just say you used other people's animals. It's no big deal. People probably respect you more for saying what's in the line than if you're just like, oh, well, this is my line and it just randomly popped out. Because it didn't. It really didn't. You used somebody else's animals at some point to get what you got. Because, you know, tangerine is not just some random mutation. It's line bred. Anything line bred, it came from somewhere. It's just one of those things. Now, naming of other stuff for marketing purposes. There was a point where I liked to name things. The Dreamsicle, the Black Hole, the Nova, Supernova, blah, 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 Stealth. You know, there was a point where I named the stuff, and then it kind of got a little counterproductive because then people would get upset, and then that's actually where the bee's name actually came from. Because people were kind of like, oh, why are you naming all this stuff? It's so hard to remember, blah, blah, blah. So, kind of in spite at the time, I said, okay, well then I'm going to name this one B. And it standed for black-eyed enigma, which is basically like an eclipse enigma. And like it was just kind of a little bit childish way of like being like, well, here, I'll just name it this then and make the acronym so much easier for you guys. Which, you know, looking back, kind of regretted it, but I mean, it was done out of everything that I usually do, I do out of kind of comic relief type of thing whenever I name stuff. Usually it's just like plays on words or you know, trying to make stuff make a little bit more sense. That's why like the Nova and all that stuff was named that, because I knew that once I produced the Nova, if I made a super form of it using the Max Snow, I could just call it a supernova, and it would still kind of make sense. You know what I mean? Same thing with the black hole. That you could make a super black hole, and those things actually exist. And what I tried to do with the naming of stuff, I tried to categorize it so that it was a little bit more easy to understand. Like all of the Tremper stuff was kind of space oriented, and you even see that with Ron naming of his galaxy. I mean, it kind of all kind of came together, and it's all kind of like out of a Tremper line type stuff. Even though some of it might not be a Tremper animal, it's all kind of out of that same area. Same thing with the rainwater stuff. Me calling it a typhoon. Whenever I produced the typhoon patternless, I didn't feel like it needed a name because I actually called it a patty tie, which was just an easy way to write it on the tub, and that's just all I ever called it. I didn't think that it was a big deal that it needed this name changed or anything like that. Now I believe they're called like cyclones. And to me, like, cyclone just doesn't make sense, because the reason they were named typhoon in the first place was because of rain water. So it was water related type of thing. It wasn't that it was like storm related, because you have like tangerine tornadoes and stuff like that. It wasn't storm related, it was water related. But you know, whatever people want to do, that's totally up to them. It's just one of those things that I believe if somebody produced the first one of a genetic combination, they have the opportunity to, if it legitimately is the first one of its kind, to name it whatever they want. If they want to keep it simple and just go with, you know, like a Max Snow Raptor Enigma, if they just want to go with that, that's cool. If they want to call it, you know, a Dreamsicle, that's cool too. I personally don't care, because I don't feel that different names are hard to learn. I mean, to some people they are hard to learn, because sometimes stuff just doesn't really make sense in what they are. But I mean, it's just names, and if you want to do this, you got to learn the names. It's that simple, I guess. But I mean, it's just one of those things that if somebody has already produced it, people shouldn't be allowed to go back and rename them, if you will, just for marketing purposes. Especially if it's just a combination. If it's, you know, a line bred trait and they want to, you know, have their own line, that's a little different. But the combinations, like, they shouldn't, you know, change names, because it's kind of like I said again, it's counterproductive. If they're first released to the world as something, you don't want to change it 3 years down the road. It's kind of strange how that happens, but it happens. Like I said, it's all marketing. Some people like to market a certain way. Some people like to market another way. Us as buyers and breeders, we just have to know, you know, all of it to be as productive as possible. That's pretty much it for naming, I would say, my little rant on naming. But you know, marketing is a big thing. To have this many animals, and you know, some of the other big breeders that have thousands of animals, they want to sell those animals. Sometimes giving them a name makes them, you know, a little bit more appealing and able to be sold. But at the same time, like, they should, you know, release what the genetics are behind that animal as well, so that people, you know what it is. To release something and not know what it is, that's borderline unethical. Just in my, you know, opinion. Because, I mean, if you don't know what it is or how it works and you release it, and people have no clue what it is, how it works, stuff like that, it's not good. It actually hurts our hobby more than it helps it. That's why I think that everything should be 100% clear of what it is before it's sold. In my collection personally, there are certain animals that that I've gotten from other people that are in the testing phase of their projects. Does that mean that I'm not crossing it into other things at the same time? No. But before I release any of it, I will make sure of what it is. I've gotten burned a couple times in the past with animals that I had bought that were supposed to be something, and they ended up being something else. And that's not good. It's definitely not ethical. And I definitely pride myself in my collection on you're getting what you paid for and what I told you they were. To sell somebody an animal that isn't what the person said it was, I mean, that's just bad. I mean, especially if it's going to somebody that's just starting out breeding. I mean, they breed that animal to a bunch of other animals and then produce animals, and like, it's just, that's how, you know, the term poop rolls downhill, like that. It just creates a huge snowball effect that at the end of the day, like, what animal is it? You know what I mean? So it's something that should definitely be looked at a little bit deeper, as breeders and stuff like that, that you, like, people know exactly what it is that's being sold, and know the genetics behind it, stuff like that. Sometimes with these fancy names, like, nobody knows what the hell they are. Excuse my language there. But it's, you know, the seller's responsibility to explain to them what it is, how it works, stuff like that. There are certain genetics that they work in certain ways that are kind of confusing sometimes, but once you understand how they work, it makes it a little bit easier. Like the eye pigmentation trait on, like, the raptor or the eclipse, for instance. I mean, it can act as a recessive, and it also can be produced out of animals that really don't have that in their blood at all, which is kind of crazy how that can happen both ways. But it's almost like once the mutation, if you will, is, I hate to use the word unlocked, but it kind of does that. It acts differently, if you will. As far as, like, some of, like, the morph enhancers and stuff like that, it's still, you know, something that can be added into things that makes it look different. The white and yellow, for instance, is definitely something that once you cross that into other projects, it definitely changes the look of the animal. There are certain things that are considered morph enhancers that don't really work, but I'll get into all that stuff later. What else can we cover here? Oh, back to certain projects that I have that I'm, testing and stuff like that to see exactly what they are, how they work. The ghost animals, for instance, especially in the bell line, there are animals that are considered ghosts that are from the bell line. They almost kind of look like they're constantly getting ready to shed, type of thing. But I just want to go through and test the genetic for my own personal, use to see how it actually works, what it really is, if it's dominant, recessive, codominant, how easily it is to reproduce. I like that part of what I do. I really like the genetic part. I love to try to figure everything out, how it works, and know exactly what's going on with it. Especially even the different lines of gems, or the different lines of snows. I want to make sure they are what they are before I really start selling any of them. I have worked with the gem snow a little bit, and had some interesting results with that stuff. Worked with the tug snow a little bit, but it's all stuff that I like to prove out myself. Especially like animals that are supposed to be like just one genetic. I actually will breed them to other genetics just to make sure that those genetics are not in it. Some of the snows that I have, they were bought as a pure line of that snow. I've actually crossed them into albinos to make sure that they're not het for albino that the person just didn't tell me about. I do a lot of that where I make sure what's in every single animal, but I also do it in a way that it's making my crosses at the same time. Like, say for instance, the tug snow, for instance. Whenever I first got it, I crossed it into a couple subspecies, crossed it into Tremper albinos that were actually marble eye animals, crossed it into bells and rainwaters as well. Just so that I knew that the animal that I had, which was a male, was not het for Tremper, rainwater, or bell. Because if it was het for one of those and I didn't know about it, it would cause a big freaking mess. So what I do is I actually cross stuff that I get with things in a way so that I know that the original animal that I'm using does not have anything else in its background. The same thing was true for the white and yellow male that was used originally to get the animals that I'm using to breed, that I've used to breed the past couple of years. Actually, I sent animals to Europe to be bred to a white and yellow, and then I got babies back from that. That's how I got my white and yellows. The original male that was bred to all those animals that I sent over, I actually don't know where he is. He would be actually a very valuable animal because he was actually proved to not be het for Tremper, bell, rainwater, patternless, or blizzard. So all the major recessives, he was not het for any of them, which is a very valuable animal to have. So what happened was he was actually bred to, I don't know if I'll get all these right, but probably most of them. He was actually bred to a G Project female, and then a couple of those babies I got back as well. The babies from that, one of the babies actually proved out not to be het for Tremper. So it was really nice to have him because I know that he is not het for Tremper. This took 2-3 years to make sure that it is what it is. So that male, I can actually use to cross into all three albino strains because he is a white and yellow from the G project, so he's got the color, and he isn't het for any of the albinos, which is awesome. That is one of the males that I will probably not get rid of while I am still working on the white and yellow project. I had the white and yellow male was also bred to a rainwater blazing blizzard banana. Well, I should say a blazing banana blizzard. I think that's all of them. Which is basically it was a rainwater. So that one, just from breeding that animal to the white and yellow, we figured out that the white and yellow male was not het for the rainwater trait, which was the blazing part of it, the patternless trait, which is the banana, because it makes it a little bit more yellowy, if you will, and the blizzard. So that knocked out 3 of them right there with that one female, which was awesome. Also, the white and yellow male was also bred to a really, really nice tangerine bell enigma. That one, I didn't really use any of those babies to get too much into any crosses or anything like that. That one was basically to see how the white and yellow and the enigma cross to each other, basically. I didn't really use any of the animals from that cross because I was scared of the crossing with the enigma. But there again, with the enigma, usually the bell strains crossed into the enigma, as long as the original enigma was a bell from Bell's facility, there usually wasn't a big deal with that being an outcross into another albino strain because it was considered the super or whatever. So crossed it to that, crossed it into a Mac Raptor as well to make sure that it wasn't het for Tremper, and that's how I got so far ahead on the snow strains of the white and yellow, and could produce supers, stuff like that. So basically, that rundown, it will make sure that it wasn't het for any of the other recessives, which is a perfect starting point for any project.